What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. You know, at this point in the NBA offseason, I feel like most of the rosters are at least like somewhat shaped at this point. Like, there's probably not going to be too many more shakeups. And so what I want to do is I want to start kind of diving deep into all of these rosters to be kind of like, hey, like where's everybody going to be playing? Who's got what position? Like who's going to be a breakout player? And that's what we're talking about today. Every single year, there's somebody on some team that usually kind of comes out of nowhere. They were really grinding in the offseason. We saw their workout videos go on IG and we were like, oh shit, look how jacked they are now. And then they get tested for steroids. But no, seriously, like there's always somebody that gets better in some capacity. And so what I want to do is take a look at like each of the NBA teams to be like, hey, who's going to be that breakout player for each team this season? So hey, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. All right, let's get into it. Look at me not using a Bleacher Report like article for once. This is amazing. This is good old-fashioned creativity being used. I should get a like just for that. Make sure you go drop one. No, just kidding. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into 3 parts. One, because I don't know how long this would take otherwise, so I'm just saying right now I'm going to break it up into 3 different parts, but regardless, I want to make sure I dive deep into like each player, and we'll do 10 in each video. So 3-part video, 30 teams. You guys can do the math, right? First team we're starting off with here is the Boston Celtics, and I'll let you guys know I haven't thought about this too much ahead of time. And what constitutes a breakout player, right? Like there's got to be opportunity to actually break out, right? Like there's got to be something that we've seen before. It's not going to be a rookie, like I'll tell you that much. And you know, it could be a guy that was like a good player already, but now they're going to be a superstar type player or something, right? So kind of MIP, most improved player, but maybe not quite in that category. Somebody that I think is going to take a jump in some capacity. You guys understand. I don't need to explain this to you. And you know, the Celtics are probably the hardest team to do this for the sole reason that like they just don't have a lot of young guys to really go and focus in on necessarily. But the guy I do want to focus in on is Neemias Queta. Neemias Queta is a guy that I've liked just for like a long time. Like I've just watched him play for long enough, and I'm like, really good size, good athleticism, and I'm like, if he's just given the chance, I'm like, I feel like we could turn him into a decent reserve big man. The Celtics did a really good job this offseason of making sure that they had plenty of backup big options, right? Nobody was necessarily doubting that they were going to bring in some non-sized players, if you will. I don't know how to better explain that. Like, Porzingis has been hurt. Al Horford is old, right? Like, those are all things we understand. I'm also just realizing now that this isn't like a current roster necessarily, so maybe I've got to find a different place to look at this for the rest of the videos or whatever. I'll figure that out later. But they went and made sure that they brought in guys like Xavier Tillman, right, and like Neemias Queta to make sure that they had reserve bigs on the team just in case something ever happened to one of those guys. And I just think Queta, if somebody goes down, I'd like to think that maybe he'll be the first person that they go to off the bench if given the right opportunity. Maybe it'll be Tillman because we saw him in the NBA Finals already get some burn when that happened. But he brings you the 7-foot size. He brings you some shot blocking. He's not like the most coordinated getting around the rim, finishing at the rim, but I just like to see the size and athleticism be put to good use. And with all the other talent on this team, I just think he could shine. Okay, at least Fanspo's got something. It's always Fanspo at the end of the day. I don't know why I ever go anywhere else. This one I think is pretty simple, actually, and I know looking at this roster, you don't necessarily see somebody that stands out all that much, but I want to highlight the boy Jalen Wilson. Jalen Wilson was a guy that came in the second round. Was it last season? I think it was last season. Oh, it should probably say on here, right? Yeah, last season, 51st pick. You know, nobody really thinks too much of those guys ever. Came in at a certain point because they needed some other guys to actually like get on the court, and all of a sudden he was playing himself into a pretty solid spot. He's 6'8", he's got good size, he was playing good defense, he was hitting his corner threes, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is kind of interesting. You saw him put the ball on the floor just a little bit more. You threw him into Summer League this year now after an interesting rookie season. Looked pretty easy for the dude out there, and you're like, oh, okay, like, kind of interesting, right? We might have something out of this. And now the Nets completely like blew up their roster. I shouldn't say completely. They've still got some guys that they could probably move. But now it's like, okay, there's not really somebody in the way of him maybe even being the starting 3 this year. Like, in all honesty, that could be the case. And why wouldn't you try to develop him at this point, right? Like, it's him and Zaire Williams pretty much in that spot, right? So it's like, okay, let's give Jalen Wilson a chance. See if this guy's going to be like a legitimate NBA player. And I'm really excited to see it nonetheless. I think that there's a lot lot of potential in, like I said, his 3-and-D kind of skills. Is he going to get to handle the ball a little bit on this team? As of right now, they still have Schroeder on the team, and like Cam Thomas will have the ball obviously a lot. And then, it gets a little bit questionable. Ben Simmons is still there, so presumably he'll have the ball a little bit. Will Derek Whitehead actually get to play this year? Hopefully he stays healthy. I don't know, but I'll be curious to see where they can take him. All right, next team I got is the New York Knicks. This one's actually kind of tough because, if you look through their roster, it's a whole lot of a lot of these guys are pretty established. But the name I'm actually going to go with right now is Mitchell Robinson. And I know, right? Like, Mitchell Robinson's had some good moments. He's also had some down moments. I really hope that we can actualize the complete Mitchell Robinson package. Because think about it, early in his career, very, very young coming into the NBA, and you're like, oh, okay, he fouls all the time, right? He's got some good defensive potential and everything. Tom Thibodeau slowly started to correct all that, and that got a lot better. The defense got really good. The rebounding started to get crazy, but the injuries started to pile up, and it was okay, is he ever going to be a decent finisher around the hoop if it's not an alley-oop? And now it's okay, we finally started to see a little bit at the beginning of last year, but like I said, he went and got hurt. Hartenstein came in and never gave the spot back, right? Well, now Hartenstein is gone. Oh, I clicked on Skims. Okay, never mind. Don't worry about it. I'm still talking. Mitchell Robinson is probably going to have to be the starting center this year. Well, I guess maybe not. Maybe they just roll with Randall, for all honesty. But Mitchell Robinson, he's going to have to play a lot of center minutes until they can find another center. He's going to be out there. And look, there's just so much other talent on this team that he really just has to be a role player. And he could be one of the best role players in basketball. Block shots, get rebounds, be that run, jump, and dunk threat for these guys. I just think that maybe he puts it all together finally, hopefully has a healthy season, and I know it's maybe not a breakout player necessarily, but there wasn't really anybody else to pick in this, but I really do think that Mitchell Robinson could have a really good season for them. All right, next up, we got the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm not even going to make you guys wait for this one. I actually think it's going to be Tyrese Maxey even more, and I know, he was already an MIP type player last season. I really think this dude could take another jump. We've seen the off-season workout videos and everything. Dude's coming in a little bit more bulky, right? How old is this dude at this point? Am I able to see? He's 23 years old right now, so still young, still kind of filling out into his body and everything. This is a guy that has adapted so well to every single situation that he's been thrust into, and he's been thrust into a lot of different situations so far in his NBA career. The Ben Simmons arc, the James Harden arc, he's his own point guard arc, right? And he's found a way to make it fit wherever. His intensity, the way he can shoot the basketball, create his own shot, play without the basketball, become a better defender. He's just fit so well in everything that I'm okay, he's absorbing the game and he's getting the game. The more reps that he gets, I don't see why he can't continue to even get better and better. And look, how much of the team do you want to run through Joel Embiid at the end of the day? You're trying to preserve him in some capacity. Tyrese Maxey probably should be the first option. Paul George is more than used to and okay with being a second, third option on the team. I always call him the all-star role player is what I call him. He's all-star level player, but he's basically a role player all-star. He can do whatever you need him to do. I think that they kind of look at each other and go, let's let Maxey cook this year. I could see Maxey getting upwards of 27, 28 points a game, being one of the best point guards in basketball this year. They've got a good team around him now and a team that makes a lot of sense for him. I just think we could really see Maxey take that next jump into the upper echelon of guards in the NBA this season. All right, fifth team for this video is the Toronto Raptors. Now, the Toronto Raptors, there's a lot of candidates in here. You look at the RJ Barretts or something like that, who all of a sudden really started to explode last year when he got moved to this team. You look at a Scotty Barnes. He's option number one now. That's really cool. Emmanuel Quickley's on this team, right? He played really, really well as soon as he got here last year. The guy I'm actually going to pick, though, is Grady Dick, surprisingly. And here's kind of why. They really need Grady Dick to become the player that he's supposed to be on this team. And what is that? They need the floor spacing, kind of switchable guard on this team. He brings some good size at 6'6". You hope that the shooting starts to come around. Are we able to see his 3-point percentage on here? 36% last year, and honestly, it was pretty rough to start last season. So seeing it get this high, really, really impressive. It shows that he did get hot at the end of last season, right? Grady Dick, will he be the starting two guard this year? Hard to say. He didn't look great in Summer League. I don't really care about Summer League all that much. I'm just glad he was getting some reps in at the end of the day. I'd like to think that, if, hey, you can continue to take another leap kind of throughout the season, you keep figuring things out, maybe by the end of the year, he is that starting two guard for them in some sort of capacity. Again, you need a guy running off of screens, hitting three-pointers. They need this role on the team because it doesn't exist, and you need it around the Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Quickly type team. It would be nice if you could maybe trust him to handle the ball a little bit more. Like RJ Barrett can do it a little bit, and Scotty Barnes honestly does it quite a bit too, because you don't necessarily have like a pure lead ball handler on this team. So it'd be nice if he could do that a little bit more. But look, you need the shooting and you need the guy to bring a little bit of gravity to the team in some capacity. Still a good athlete. I just think that he could truly fit into a particular role on this team, and he'll be given the opportunity to do so. And I think that that just breeds an invitation to kind of have this like developing young player that turns into something. So I really hope we can see it out of Grady Dick this year. All right, next up is the Chicago Bulls. My Chicago Bulls. For those of you that don't know, I'm a Bulls fan. This is honestly a hard one, and here's why. There's a couple people that you could probably list here, but the problem is the roster is constructed so strangely that you're just kind of looking around being like, okay, yeah, it would make sense for this guy to kind of have a uptick in his play this year, but just given the players that are around him, it's going to be so much harder for him than it probably should be, and that's because you look at the combination of like Kobe, Giddey, and like DeSumo, and you're like, okay, what's kind of going to go on here? You're still trying to get Lonzo Ball in the court. It looks like Zach LaVine's probably still going to be on the team next year, and you look at a guy like Patrick Williams, and is he finally going to get some touches? Is Dalen Terry finally going to get to show some of that ball handling skill? It's so hard to look at this and figure out where exactly you want to go. So this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it's Patrick Williams, and here's the caveat with it. I think at some point they find a trade for Zach LaVine. I just think at some point somebody's going to get desperate and they're going to do it. Bulls will probably have to give up something to make it happen just because of the cost and everything. It's hard to make these trades nowadays. Here's what happens then. Zach LaVine's gone. Josh Giddey, he's the starting, like, he's just the lead guard on the team now. It's probably him and Kobe White, maybe DeSumo off the bench in some capacity. I don't know who's playing the wing between, like, Terry and Buzelis and those guys. Hard to say. Patrick Williams has shown that he can do a little bit of everything. And when I talk to like my people that are like, they're there within the Bulls, right? They're like, man, this guy's just so talented. It just doesn't come out of him. Like we see it and the skill is there. Like it's so obviously there. How can we get him in some spots to where he can actually like succeed? I'd like to think with Giddey kind of running the show, they can just get Patrick Williams in a sense of like, hey, you're moving off ball and you just got to go be athletic and just go make shots. Let Giddey make your life like really easily. You've got guys like Kobe White spotting up. It'd be nice if they had more of like a lob threat center that would make Giddey's job like a little bit easier. I think that maybe Jalen Smith could like get some minutes or something in there and help them out in that capacity somewhat. But like, I don't know. I don't necessarily feel great about this pick, but I can see the potential of it. Like I can see Patrick Williams. He's the 3/4 this year that once they move some other people out of the way, he could really have a chance to shine and finally show the skill that we know is at least there. They need to find a way to get it out. And for the past couple of years, it's just been because there's a hodgepodge of weird players that don't really give him a chance to succeed. So man, I really hope they can pull it out of the dude because he is just really talented, and that's just my kind of coaching eye, I guess, watching it is like all the skills are there. You just got to find a way to, one, make him be aggressive, but two, put him in a chance to succeed. So let's hope. All right, next up we have is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, you're looking at this team, and again, maybe not the most obvious candidate on the team, but I'm actually going to give this to Craig Porter Jr. here. Craig Porter Jr., really interesting season last year. Shot kind of average from the field, but again, kind of came out of nowhere because, I mean, he's an undrafted Wichita State point guard. Here's the thing. Cleveland's going to need another, like, point guard out there in some capacity, in my opinion, at least. Like, you've got the Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. You're probably going to want at least one more guard out there for at least the regular season. Craig Porter Jr. stepped in a lot of moments last year when Garland or Mitchell were down, and like, frankly, he played really well. Again, you see some of the stats here, like the 5-6 points a game. The turnovers were kept low. Like, he made a solid amount of his shots. He was 50% from the field. Again, 35% from three. You give him maybe more of a consistent role. He's a little bit older, right? A little bit wiser. All of a sudden, you could have a really good opportunity because there's a lot of other guys that attract attention on this team. You've got the alley-oop threats to kind of keep your drives nice and simple. You've got star players that are going to command a lot of attention. I think he's going to be given an opportunity to really shine in some capacity off the bench this next year. So he could end up being one of those undrafted dudes that just finds their role and is given an opportunity to just kind of be like okay, you're going to run the show for the bench for us this year. Go create your own shot, like keep the team running smoothly. Maybe you're running with Mobley more often than not, having two younger guys kind of run those pick and roll basic basketball options. You've got guys like Strus and Karis LeVert who are hopefully contributing in some capacity as well there, and all of a sudden you've got a nice squad that you're running with. There's nobody really keying in on you, and so I think he's going to have a pretty clear runway to try to develop into something pretty cool. Next up is the Detroit Pistons, and they have plenty of people to pick from, right? If you told me it was Cade Cunningham because they finally got some solid players around you, I could totally see that. I think Cade Cunningham's one of the most talented players we have in this league. I think he's been in a really crappy situation up to this point, and it's like, but I think like at least most of us are pretty aware that he's actually like a really good basketball player that's just playing around kind of garbage, to say the least. I'm not sure that like Ivy's necessarily going to be put in a much better spot, or like a Sar Thompson necessarily. I actually want to go with Jalen Duren for this one. Because here's the thing. Jalen Duren, clearly the starting center on this team, right? I know a lot of Pistons fans like to be like, oh, his defense was like this and yada, yada, yada. It's like, look, you look at the dude, and he's so capable of being like a really elite defender, and there's plenty of excuses. And while you don't want to have excuses, because look, the defense was not like a mental issue necessarily. It seemed like more of an effort issue, which I guess you could say is a mental issue. I'm trying to say it's not like he didn't understand what was going on. Like, I can see it. It just looks like the motor turned off at some point. Motor City. That's kind of funny, but here's my thing. At the end of the day, this dude, he goes to the University of Memphis. It's a shit show there, man. Y'all just got to trust me. It is a shit show over there in Memphis. And, you know, it's kind of all over the place. They don't win a ton of games, blah, 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 blah. You go to Detroit, where it's just like you're just getting smoked over and over and over again. There's inner turmoil within the team. You're a young dude just trying to find your place in the NBA. Your team is just bleh. It doesn't fit you at all. You're losing every single night. Like, people are memeing you guys and everything. That's hard to stay motivated, man. Like, and again, shouldn't be an excuse, but like it is. Like, he's a young dude, he's 20 years old, and he's putting up 14 points and 12 rebounds already. Like, the dude's going to be able to play some defense, hopefully with a better team around them this year. Hopefully Detroit's cleaning things up. I have a hard time necessarily believing that they will, but the talent is so there for this guy to be a really dominant player, because he's so physically gifted. When the motor is going, like, it's pretty hard for teams to stop him, because he's going up, he's grabbing rebounds, he's blocking shots, he's around the rim being physical with everybody. Like, I think he complements guys like Cade and Ivy really well, so I think that he can break out now that they've got a couple more vets on the team. Hopefully they start to win some more basketball games and they can keep him motivated. So I think that he could be a really big breakout player for them. All right, next up we got is the Indiana Pacers. Now, I want to give a special shout out for the Indiana Pacers, because I have a small working theory with this one. This isn't my pick, but I really want to watch out for James Wiseman this year. And just hear me out for just a second, all right? I know James Wiseman has been very all over the place and everything, kind of similar to Duren, right? Goes to Memphis or whatever. It's chaotic there. He gets brought in by the Warriors. He clearly isn't like experienced enough basketball-wise. He's kind of the product of like, okay, played too much AAU basketball, didn't actually learn how to play basketball. Nobody taught him shit in college. He's in the NBA now trying to play with the smartest players in the world. It doesn't really work out, right? Goes to Detroit. I don't know what you expect developmentally there. It wasn't going to work there either. Now, all of a sudden, we find this guy who, given maybe hasn't played the most basketball recently, but I'm curious to see if when we get this super athletic and very mobile big man in this very up-tempo, kind of AAU similar style offense where they get up and down the court very quickly, they're looking for guys at all times, and he's such a good athlete, like, maybe James Wiseman turns into something this year. Maybe he's not a superstar, but maybe turns into something interesting. Nonetheless, he's not my pick. It's not Nembhard either, but I think he'll be really good. It's probably got to be Benedict Mathurin. What do we know about Benedict Mathurin? Wing out of Arizona, plays incredibly hard, probably needs to learn how to pass the ball better, but at the end of the day, dude's a scorer. He's one of the tougher dudes in basketball. You can just tell he's got that mentality that like, I'm just gonna dog you, right? And that's something that the Pacers were kind of missing at points in the offseason, was kind of that physical wing that can go out there and not only be like a solid physical defender, right? Because they got some of that in like the Ben Shepherds and some of the other guys that they threw out there at points last season, but but he's going to be another scorer that's probably upwards of above 15, 16 points a game this season, right? Coming into, what is this, his third season now? His first season, the shooting wasn't quite there, right? Started to put together the shooting this year, given 59 games, then he was out the rest of the season, but he had been figuring the shot out. I'm a little bit concerned that they don't have Buddy Hield now, because I think he created a lot of space for them. I wish they would have been able to manage that situation a little bit better, but this is a guy that can go be physical, go create his own shot in some capacity. He's going to get to the rim for you and create other opportunities for other people. So if you can just keep teaching him the offense and have him expand like kind of his vision of the game, you could have a really cool basketball player on your hands here. I'll be very curious to see kind of what rotation they end up going with this year. I'm sure Mathurin will start in some capacity, just because, like, again, young guy that you're continuing to develop, should be a really good player for you for years to come. So I'm just excited to see kind of like how he comes into the season, because to me, he seems like one of those dudes that's like so pissed that he was out for the end of last season that he's just going to come out and be like, okay, I'm going 150% on everybody this year. I'm taking everybody to the hoop. Nobody's going to stop me. He's going to be hitting shots. He's going to have a lot of energy. So I'm really, really hoping that we see some good stuff out of Mathurin, but watch out for James Wiseman as well. Finally, for this video, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. This one I think is pretty easy in my mind. I want to give it to Andre Jackson Jr. The UConn guys just always tend to figure it out. Andre Jackson Jr., when he started out last season, you had a pretty solid player on your hands. Like, the defense was really crazy. You saw the athleticism. The size was needed on this team as like another lengthy wing, because Beauchamp just still wasn't really able to put something together. He wasn't necessarily putting up like crazy counting stats, even though, I mean, given only took 46 threes on the year, hit 37% of them, so we take that. It's limited numbers. But when Doc came in, Doc changed up the rotation like so much, and he kind of pushed Andre Jackson Jr. out of it, and he's kind of one of those old school guys that really doesn't like to play rookies necessarily, but I just see so much potential in this guy and his ability to kind of increase the pace of Milwaukee at times. You need young guys on the court with all these older dudes out there. You need guys that are going to go out there and chase people around, play really good defense, be good athletes. Like, if he can just find some semblance of a shot to, like, going forward, you could have a really, really valuable player here. Because let's be honest, like, we have questions about Pat Connaughton and Beauchamp, and we'll see if Green can get out there at all and be a contributor for him. Like, Doc Rivers really tried to force that, but like, man, it just didn't seem like he should have been on the court at points. I don't know, Andre Jackson Jr., him and like Gary Trent to me should be kind of like that 2-3 wings that hopefully can come out and play some decent defense and shoot the ball a little bit. So I hope that they give him a chance to thrive this year. I don't think he's going to start, but I hope he's at least part of the bench rotation in some capacity. So I'm really into Andre Jackson Jr., and I hope that they give him a shot. But yeah, so I went through the Atlantic and the Central in this one. I'll be sure to do, what did I do now? I'll do the Southeast and the Northwest in the next video, and then we'll move on to the Pacific and the Southwest later in the week or something like that. Make sure you guys be on the lookout for, I'll have like a channel update video pretty soon, kind of talking about what August is going to look like. I've got a really crazy August, and I just wanted to inform you guys about that. But hey, I appreciate you guys for watching as always. It's always a pleasure, and hey, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much. Bye.